Welcome, everyone. Welcome to this session on meta therapy. And this is part of our weekly sessions, weekly programs we organize under the Institute of Neuro-Semantics, Malaysia. And we have sessions on, this one is under the Neuro-Semantics. Then we have sessions on leadership and meta coaching and also on parenting. So you can pick and choose which of these sessions that appeal to you the most. Now, some of you are here for the first time and there are others who have joined these sessions before. So whether you are a first timer or a regular, welcome. And I encourage you to interact during the discussions later. I'm Marzuki. I'm a neurosemantics trainer and meta coach, and I help people to systematically develop skills in leading, communicating, and coaching to bring out the best in yourself and others. In the 60 to 90 minutes together, we'll be discussing on three main points. One, as an introduction to go through the definitions of the topic that we will be discussing. The second main point is the structure of meta therapy from neurosemantics and NLP. And the third main point we'll be discussing this evening is on the design of therapy. I will pause for discussion after each main point. This is to invite questions or comments and contributions from any one of you. As usual, I'd like to remind you that my style is to be light and humorous. So if I laugh or smile, I'm never laughing at you, but at our silly human qualities. My purpose is to lighten things up, reduce being serious, and be more real. Now, this session is based upon a presentation by Dr. Michael Hall, the co-founder of Neuro-Semantics and the Meta Coaching System. He presented this topic in November of last year, and it is based on the findings from his latest book called Meta Therapy. So let's get going into the first point, that is to go through the definitions and introduction to meta therapy. So what do we mean by therapy? And meaning is a neuro-semantics question, a semantic question. Now, therapy implies a problem. Life is not going as wanted. It implies a trauma, a wound or hurt, causing suffering. It implies the need for healing of the wound or the correction of the misunderstanding that caused the hurt. It also implies a problematic mental map, one that is either inadequate or wrong. What is therapy? In this next slide, therapy refers to a conversation. Not just any conversation, it is a change conversation. It is a collaborative conversation between the therapist and the client. It is a learning, unlearning, and relearning conversation. It is a conversation for personal power. It is at times a reparenting to finish developmental stages. It is self-discovery and self-actualization. So as you notice the definitions for therapy, I would like to invite you, those of you who are coaches, to begin comparing between coaching and therapy, because coming from the coaching background, a lot of these things are new to me. A lot of these are new because from the coaching background, we are looking at people who are growing. Therapy is about making people well again. So when we talk about well, people are hurt. In therapy, they are hurt. So we look at the degrees of hurt. All hurt is not the same. Different kinds, different degrees. So you notice that on the left side of the slide, so let me just take out my pen over here. You have, at one end of the scale, you have people who have a break in reality, and these are people suffering from psychosis. Then in the middle there, we have people who may be tortured by reality. So these are what we consider as neurosis. And then on the right side of the scale, there people who are frustrated with reality, frustrated in the sense that things are not going their way and they want to make things better. So they are troubled. So this is the side where coaching is at. People who are troubled with the current reality, they are frustrated with it and they want more. So the degrees of hurt is in terms, I would say, on that scale, you are talking about low hurt going up to a higher degree of hurt. So that's basically what we are referring to in terms of the degrees of hurt. Now, when there is hurt, what do? We want to intervene in order that we can rectify that hurt. So there are different kinds of intervention. At the deepest end, so to speak, there is the institutional intervention. So that is where therapy comes in. And then moving on to the healthier side of the scale, where a person goes in for an intense therapy, so intense situation. So that is also part of what therapy is. And then there's, on that scale as well, there is counseling. So people go for counseling because they need guidance. And at the other end of the scale, that's where coaching comes in. I want you to notice that coaching is about challenging. And one of the things that I want you to hold on as we go through this session is that when we want to differentiate between coaching and therapy, is that coaching is you are challenging people in order to go for higher levels, to achieve higher levels in their lives. So notice the different kinds of intervention. In coaching, you are challenging the client in order for them to perform at a higher level. In counseling, we are giving guidance to the client in order to find the answers that they are looking for. In intense intervention, then therapy is about making good, is removing that hurt. And similarly, in institutional situation, therapy is there to bring people to rid them of the hurt. So what we notice is that on the left hand of the scale, institutional, intense, and counseling, those are changes that we refer to as remedial change. Remedial meaning to say they are not operating at the normal level. We want to bring them to the level that they can operate at the normal level. Now, with coaching, we are talking about generative change, to generate new ways of thinking, new ways of operating, and new ways of doing things. So this is in the first instance, in terms of the introduction to this topic on therapy, and my interest as I begin to, I'll use the word explore into this. My background is from coaching, and typically in coaching we have conversations that can be therapeutic to the client. So asking the question, what's the difference between therapy and coaching? For those of you who are coaches, I hope that this will be able to give you a little bit more insight into the difference between therapy and coaching. So therapy is about bringing people to a situation whereby we can help them to heal a wound or hurt that is causing them suffering. Okay, so let me just pause there after this first point, and invite any one of you, what is your thought for the moment? Before we go into the next point will be much bigger. And as I look at those who are here right now, I'd like to say hello to Hashim has been here. Lou, thank you for joining us. And Rosita, that's my wife, Rosita. And we have Iania Ismail. I hope I mentioned your name right. And Zafrul, great to see that you're able to join us. And Nurul, thank you for joining us. And our regular Cheksiu, thank you for joining us. So that's the little bit of introduction. Any thoughts so far before we jump into the topic of the topic on understanding the structure of therapy from NLP and neurosemantics. So yes, Rosita, you raise your hand. Go ahead.
Assalamualaikum and very good morning. Looking at the introduction that was given just now, so someone that has gone through hurt, the level of hurt just now is maybe the highest level, because you have 3, right, that you mentioned just now. Then maybe is it right to say that if they are going through coaching, we have to consider to do the therapy first before proceeding with the coaching?
What I would say is yes and no, because let me just share the screen. I missed out the screen just now. Is that when we look at the range that a person is experiencing, you have at one end of the scale the abnormal range, whereby a person is experiencing psychosis. So that's where therapy comes in. A person who is, notice this, normal, so there is that diminution of powers. So this person goes through counseling, and notice that this person is also experiencing certain neurosis in his or her life. Then this is where the range for coaching comes in. We are talking about people who are going forward. They are beyond normal. They are going into human expansion, and they respond to challenges. So that's why we bring coaching in such a situation. Now, having said that, we people that we consider ourselves as normal, or going for our goals, we are also experiencing hurts in certain areas. So a healthy human being are also experiencing some form of neurosis as well. Certain parts of their lives that are not working. So for these people, their psychologics is healthy. They can respond to coaching, to challenge, to growth. It's just that when, as a coach, when I am dealing with someone who presents a certain level of hurt, that's when the degree of challenge and the degree of interaction will need to change. So this is why this topic on metatherapy is, I'll use the word, is most relevant to a coach, so that a coach can know when to challenge and when not. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. So meaning to say, when we are when we are a coach, it is very important for us to be sensitive to the level of hurts, yes, so that we will not challenge those who are facing psychosis at that level, because instead of bringing it into improvement, we causing the person to go into what is the word?
Regression.
Regression, yeah. So that is the skill that is very important for a coach.
Yes, to be able to detect whereabout is your client at this moment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And I'll go for Ting Wei first. You raise your hand first. Go ahead.
Yeah, because I also practice therapy in using the modality of hypnosis. At the same time, practicing coaching. I think at one stage, the role can be confused. I think most of the time, when we talk about the differences between coaching and therapy, I think most of the topics is that one of the explanation is about coaching is about goal-oriented, right? Goal-oriented. But from a therapy perspective, we do have a goal, right? Is to recover from a hurt to normal. That is very goal-oriented as well. So I think, Marzuki, you explained it very well. I think there's this psychosis and also the degree of hurt that draw the line between that context or the elements of goal, because both have goals, right? One is more empowering, one is recovering, but I think the keyword is also about remedial change and generative change. But I also say it's also fair to say that sometimes coaching also here to solve problems, right? We solve problems to be better, we solve problems to break performance, right? So I think that explanation really gives me like, wow, I think there's something we can explain in more details rather than just say goal-oriented. I think that's not sufficient.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for those thoughts, Ting Wei. Yeah, and when we go into NLP and neurosemantics in a short while, the next topic, then you will begin to realize why is it some coaching conversations can be therapeutic, and how is it that some psychotherapy conversation may not be therapeutic. Once you understand the structure, then it makes sense that way. Thank you, Ting Wei. And Tunku Adrina, go ahead.
Hello, Assalamualaikum. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Marzuki, for explaining about the degrees of hurt. I think it makes a lot of sense because I am practicing coaching at the moment, and to be really honest with everyone here, when it comes to encountering situations with clients who have a very high degree of hurt, I have reservations in taking them as clients because I feel that I don't have the capacity and capability of helping them because of the high degree of hurt that they have experienced. And I would normally refer them to psychologists or psychiatrists instead. So my question would be, when it comes to the meta therapy that is actually offered here, may I know, when it comes to psychosis and neurosis, when it comes to the higher degree of hurt, right? So where do psychiatrists, psychologists come in, and how do we as coaches / therapists help? And because I think to me, I feel it's a delicate thing. We are actually helping people when it comes to their emotions and their psychological state. And I feel that when I'm entrusted with this, I would definitely want to take an extra degree of care to make sure that I'm really helping them. So can you perhaps explain how do we help them, and what kind of clients are we able to help, and where do we draw the line, because we are not trained as psychologists and psychiatrists?
Right. Thank you, Tunku Adrina, for that question. So if I understand your question right, so where do we draw the line between coaching and therapy? And that is also part of the question that I have been holding in my mind, because when we look at the professional quadrants, we have the therapist, we have the consultant, we have the trainer, teacher, mentor, and then we have coaches. Now, as a trained coach, you need to learn how to wear different hats. So there are times that as a coach, you are fully into the coaching role. There are times that you are into the consulting role. There are times that you step into the trainer role. It's just that I want to repeat a reminder that Michael said in the book, Coaching Conversation. When does a coach step into the therapist role? And his answer is never, because the relationship between a therapist and a client is totally different relationship as a coach has with a client, or mentor has with a client, or a consultant has with a client. So that's why in the meta coaching system, we have 9 points to look out for whether a person is coachable or not. Yeah, if you want to know those 9 points, then you can email me later. So as a coach, when someone comes up to me, I want to go through this checklist first, because that checklist will tell me whether this person is suitable to be coached. If this person is not suitable to be coached, then as you mentioned, I would want to refer to a psychiatrist or a therapist, because they have the skills to create that relationship that such a person requires. Yeah, thank you, Ia. How do I pronounce your name? Iania, is that how you pronounce your name? Go ahead.
Lania, okay.
Lania, okay.
All right. My question is, I think, how about a situation where a person is not neurosis or psychosis, but there is a certain extent of particular specific things that happen that probably have hurt in towards a big degree of hurt. So how can coaches and therapists work hand in hand? I mean, probably the specific area in part of the life, maybe been through a traumatic event that needs help of therapists, but other aspect of life, maybe just for the coaches to help. So how come therapists and coaches work hand in hand?
Yeah. So thank you for asking that question. So that's why in my address book, I have contact detail of a couple of therapists in case any one of my coaching clients require those skills. Yeah, so I do not want to move into the area of therapists, because as I mentioned, it requires a totally different set of skills. And thank you to Hashim, who just put in the point, a therapist needs a different skill sets compared to coaching. A great conversation that is. Unfortunately, I need to exit early this time. So thank you, Hashim, for putting in there. One of the things that that a therapist does and requires a lot of skill is the skill of transference, because when the client is psychologically broken, they are not able to trust their own ways of thinking. So that's when the therapist creates the situation whereby the client transfers the authority to the therapist, and then the therapist will reparent the client. So that is not a skill that coaches go into. Since coaching is a skill that is about bringing the person to be able to utilize their powers fully, taking the powers from the client goes against the objectives of coaching. So that's why a coach doesn't want to mix the two, mix coaching and therapy together. For example, Michael, even though he's a certified therapist until today, he's a certified professional therapist, he will not run a therapy on a coaching client. He would also refer that, because it requires a great, it is not just about changing hats. In coaching, we can put on the hat of a mentor. We can also step into the hat of a consultant if needs be. We can put on the trainer hat as a coach when the situation demands. However, the part of stepping into therapy is not just about changing hats. It requires a totally different dynamics altogether. Yeah. So one of the things about a person who requires therapy is that in terms of why the coaching dynamic is not for them, because in coaching we are dealing with people with healthy ego strength, and because of that we can challenge them. A person with weak ego strength, when challenged, they will break. So that's why a coach is not the right person for someone who requires therapy in that sense. It's just that healthy human beings like us, I hope we are all healthy psychologically, we do have our areas where that is broken. So it doesn't mean that we need a therapist for that and a coach for others. It's just that those can be fixed when we move into the meta levels in a short while. Yes, G, go ahead.
So you are healthy?
I hope so.
That's not the question I want to ask. So basically, with this topic, meta therapy, you keep me in suspense actually. So I believe this is where we who are coaches can use in our coaching, the meta therapy.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. So let's move on. I hope that this second point will make things much clearer. Before I move to the second point, just like to honor Ines, who just joined us from hi Ines, and also Vikram, who just joined us. Thank you for joining us. So let's move to the next point. We are looking at the structure of how coaching happens. Sorry, how therapy happens, how a conversation can be therapeutic. And the structure of it, we are looking at it from neurosemantics and NLP premises. Now, one of the things that we are looking at over here is that there is the premise in neurosemantics and NLP is that there is a difference between what happens to you and how you respond to it. So we are looking into the response powers of thinking, feeling, and saying, doing. Now, what happens? Those refers to life, circumstances, experiences, events. Those are what happens. Now, your response is based upon your consciousness, your choice, your thinking. So how you respond and how you feel is ultimately your choice. Our responses of thinking, feeling, and our responses of saying, doing, those are our choices. Now, what happens? Life, COVID, those are beyond our control. So from neurosemantics and NLP, what we are looking is the difference between what happens to you that's out there and your responses. Okay, so that's the first one. Now, to take a look at this inside-out distinction. On the outside, let me get my pen. On the outside are the things that happen to you, and you have little or no control over it. Most recently, you have issues with short supply of eggs in the market. There's nothing that we can do about that. We have no control. So that's happening on the outside. Then on the inside is how you respond, how you think, how you feel, how you say and do towards the stimulus that's on the outside. Now, you have lots of control over that when you have learned how to control them. Okay, so that's why in APG, we focus on ownership of your 4 powers so that you can have full control over your thinking, feeling, saying, doing. Now, the secret to life is to learning to live inside out. So you are living from the point of choice, the point of responsibility, instead of being a victim to what's out there. So what's out there, you take it as an information, and then you begin to develop your own strategies about how to handle that situation. So the secret here is learning to live from inside out instead of from outside in. Okay, so therapy as a meta function. So I'm giving you a couple of quotations from Gregory Bateson. The dependency of psychotherapy upon the manipulation of frames follows from the fact that therapy is an attempt to change a patient's meta communicative habits. So hold on to the words meta communicative habits. How a person, the habitual way that a person communicates to him or herself. Before therapy, the patient thinks and operates in terms of a certain set of rules for making and understanding messages. In the process of therapy, there must have been communication at a level meta to these rules. There must have been communication about a change in rules. Now, the reason why people who require therapy is that when they communicate to themselves, they are not able to manage that communication process in a healthy way that drove their responses of speech and behavior to be not useful for them. So the successful therapy is when the person learns that meta-communicative process in a way that brings health to the way that they think, feel, that brings health to the way that they say, do. So that's why the topic for this evening is on meta therapy, because it is all happening out there. So the term meta-communicative habits implies the two levels. We are familiar with these levels. One is the primary level, and the other is the meta level. Now, problems and also the solutions, they exist in the meta level. It's all up here. It's all internal. That's why we say inside out. Your problems, our problems are our creations, and our solutions come from our own creation as well. So it is at the meta level where the processes and structure is operating. Now, what's out there, the things that we cannot control, that's at the primary level, that is the content, that's the story. So when we look at looking for solutions to the problems that we are facing, it is not out there. The problems inside at the meta level, and the problems, the solution is also inside at the meta level. So to me, this was the aha moment that made me realize, so that's why a meta coaching conversation can be therapeutic, because we are making changes at the meta level. And some therapy conversations may not be therapeutic because the conversation is not happening inside, but the conversation is focused only on the outside. So that's when it is also not therapeutic in that sense. Okay, so yeah, therapy occurs at a meta level. So at the primary level, you have content. So when we talk about content, we are talking about the person, him or herself. The components of state are the mind, the VAK, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, the language modality. So that's part of the mind, and also the body physiology. That's at the primary level. Now, at as well as the expression of the state. So one, you have the state component, and then how the person expresses the state is through their speech and behavior. So this is what we are referring to is at the primary level. Now, the primary level is there, it's happening as is. If we want to make any change, then we need to go to the meta level to look at the structure. At that structure level, a person is looking at the event and focusing on that event creates the map, and because of that creates that primary state. Okay, so that's at the first level. And then with self-reflexivity, the person begins to feel about how they are creating that map. So now the focus is internal. So that's why we call it the meta level. Okay, so good that I discovered this question from Tunku Adriana. My apologies if this question is elementary. May I ask, what is the difference between meta level and primary level? What do they mean? So primary levels refers to when I'm thinking about what's happening outside. What's happening outside, let's say outside of me, I'm looking at my laptop and my webcam is there. So that's on the outside. So as I think about my laptop and my webcam, I'm looking at the app that I'm using, Zoom app I'm using, and I'm thinking, oh, I'm glad that I have this app because it enables me to meet up with people from all over the world. And so now I'm thinking about what's happening in the here and now. So that's the primary level. As I'm thinking about that, the meaning that I have about what's happening is that I feel so blessed that this is happening. That's at the primary level state. So that's my primary state. And then I begin to think about my feeling blessed in having this session. Okay. Now what I'm doing is that my focus is not at what's happening out there. Now my focus is on my thinking, and giving this example is a little bit difficult for me because I was focused on the primary level, that I have not been focusing on the meta level. So the moment I begin to think about feeling blessed, so what does feeling blessed means to me? It means that I am useful. So what does being useful mean to me? Being useful means that I'm able to contribute to others. I'm to be in service of others. Now, all of those thoughts are happening inside because my thinking is about the meanings that I put in there. So that's at the meta level structure. So when we talk about meta communicative habits, the way that we communicate with ourselves internally, that's where our health and our illness comes from. When we communicate it in the right way, then we become healthy. When we communicate it in the wrong way, then we bring ill health, neurosis or psychosis into our lives. So primary level, when I'm thinking about what's outside of me, that's at the primary level. The moment I begin to utilize my self-reflexivity, the ability to think about my thinking, to feel about my feeling, and from there to feel about those are at the meta level. It is at the next level and the next level. Okay, and we are going to go into that a little bit deeper. So when we talk about meta therapy, so that is why in order to create change that lasts, that is healthy, we need to go meta. We need to go into the meta levels because that's where the problems are, and that's also where the solutions are. What's outside there is outside of our control, but what's inside here is within our control. So meta, it means above, beyond, or about something. So going to a meta position, we go to a position for perspective and transformation. Meta is where the hidden framework for the content level. Here are the processes that govern things. The term is it governs things. The processes that we have here that is govern things. By going meta, you can step back in your mind for perspective and awareness. So quickly, just take a look at the landscape of the meta place. So, okay. So over here we have the person going through noticing what's happening outside here. Okay, that's the event happening, then creates a representation of what's happening, and this is informed by this person's thinking pattern, creating beliefs, and from there creating layers of reflexive frames. And what happens inside the landscape of the meta place is that all of those gets lumped in together. We call them as a gestalt. And then when that interacts with background knowledge, then it comes back into the neurology, creating changes in ourselves. And we are also driven by our D needs, the deficiency needs, the lower levels of the hierarchy of needs. So those are happening in the meta place. At the same time as we are dealing with what's outside over here, there is a feedback loop whereby we are anticipating what's happening in the future, bringing it in, and then bringing all of those information back into the landscape of the meta place. Does that sound complicated? It does.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yes, go ahead. You want to ask something?
Can I simplify it by saying this way? The primary, what was it? Primary what? Primary
Levels
is our outer world.
Mm-hmm.
The meta level is our inner world.
Yes.
Okay.
Just be careful, do not oversimplify it. By oversimplifying it, you may fall into the trap of the cognitive distortion of generalizing. Then you get into
however, to
problems as
explain
well.
to somebody that is not familiar, so just for first step is to say what is outside of us is the primary level.
Yeah.
But what's going on inside us, where what you call that is the meta level.
Yeah.
And hence the neurosemantic is what's going on, the meaning, the thing that is going on inside of us, creating the meaning, and because of that it affect our thinking, feeling, and bringing to the world our saying and doing.
Okay. Yeah.
Just be
reminded that it is non-linear.
Okay.
Because what's happening outside here is also impinging on what's happening inside here, and then it goes outside and in. So that's that feedback loop happening. Okay. So
I mean, you're saying, like, for example, seeing outside, just a simple example that crossed my mind is because what is inside is saying that, oh, I can see everything is green. So when they look outside and think that it's blue also become green. Is that something what you're trying to say? That it loops back?
I don't quite get you.
Okay, meaning to say, you see what you believe. Is that what is the loop about? You see what you believe.
Yes, because it gets into your perceptual filter, and then also you have your conceptual filter happening.
Okay, got it.
Right. So the next piece that I just want to also mention, what is happening in the meta place. So as a person experiences the world out there, notice that the person is representing that world, and then through the thinking patterns, creating those beliefs, values, permissions, decisions, metaphors, identity, rules, intentions, presuppositions, creating all of those meta level structures. We call them structures. So creating all of these up here. And then it is also referencing to the background knowledge or our understandings, memories. So those are the background knowledge. And we are also referencing with our future expectations. So that's how that feedback loop gets created. So that's all of those things are happening in the meta place. So that all of those are created because there is this unique faculty that human beings have, that is the faculty of self-reflexivity. Self-reflexivity is the ability that we have to think, feel about what you previously thought and felt, to reflect back onto the first experience. So you experience something, you think about that. I'm giving an example from my favorite drink. I have a cup of coffee, then I have a drink, and my state is the state of joy, ecstasy, even to be able to drink that cup of coffee. And then I begin to reflect. Oh, I'm so grateful that I have had. I'm able to enjoy this wonderful cup of coffee, and then I continue to think. Then I begin to think about my gratefulness. Yes, being grateful is a very powerful habit. So notice that I'm beginning to think about my thinking, about my feeling. So that's what we are referring to as self-reflexivity. Now, this self-reflexivity is a never-ending process. You can always think, feel, one more time, one more layer. You can go up higher and higher and higher layers. And this reflexivity creates layers of thoughts, feelings. It generates logical levels in our mind. So when we are referring to logical levels, they are also non-linear, to be aware that our self-reflexivity can also spiral. So understand, having the ability to track our self-reflexivity is also a skill that can be learned. So that's basically the structure of what's happening at the meta level, so that when we go into the next point, to go into the design of therapy, understanding this layering, this thinking process allows us in our normal conversation, in our coaching conversation with a client, that conversation can be therapeutic for the client. So I'll just pause here after that second point on neurosemantics, NLP and neurosemantics premises. If there are any comments that you would like to make or any questions that you want to ask, so go ahead. Let me see some thumbs up if you're okay with that, so that I can proceed with the next point. Okay. Thank you. So let's move to the third main point for this evening. It's called design of therapy. In the meta place, you texture. Yeah. You are texturing the person's experiences. So in terms of the design of therapy here, we are looking at the design of therapy is one is to get a person out of pain or distress. The second one is to facilitate remedial change. Even generative change may occur in therapy. However, the primary focus is to have remedial change. Then frame and reframe more positive meaning. So that's what we are looking at when we are designing for therapy. And the next one is to facilitate self-discovery, acceptance, value, and self-determination. Then to empower for responsibility and ego strength to face reality. And this is the issue that most people who require therapy that they face, is that they don't have enough ownership of their response abilities and also ego strength to face reality. And the next one is to create more accurate and productive mental maps of the world. So this is what therapy is for. That's the design of therapy. So in the meta place, you texture experience, creating new qualities. When we talk about new qualities, at the primary state, as a person interacts with the world that's out there, the quality of the states that are created are diminishing the person. So what we are doing using the in the meta place is we are creating meta states that are much more healthy and wholesome for the person, because the previous meta state is not healthy for the person. So that's what we are doing, texturing the experience using creating new qualities. And how do we do that? Is we are layering state upon state. If you have the initial state to be unhealthy, you want to create a richer, more textured experiences, more nuanced states that are more healthy for the person. So states such as joyful learning, love of learning, this is an example, passionate learning. So these are examples of richer, more textured experiences. This example, just on the concept of learning, some people, they may have the concept of boring learning. That's why they get bored when they learn. So when you texture it with joyful learning or love of learning, then the experience of learning becomes much richer for that person. So the second state qualifies and modifies the previous state. So that's what we are referring to as it textures it. Okay, so that's what one of the things that we do is to layer state upon state. Then the next step is when we talk about meta stating, every meta state becomes a new frame for the person. So as we are layering one state of thought and feelings upon another layer, creating an inner world. So this is what we are referring to as the meta place. So in the context of coaching, a coach facilitates the client to create meta states that are healthy, that are resourceful in the context of therapy. Now the therapist is guiding and instructing the client to create healthy meta states, new and healthy meanings and understandings, and getting rid of the old one. So meta state, each meta state is a frame. Now, while the meta terms seem to imply different things, we talk about multiple layers going up. They are in fact facets of the same thing, the experience. So this is the metaphor that Michael uses, the metaphor of the diamond of consciousness. As we take a diamond in our hand, we look at it from different viewpoints. The diamond will look different. So similarly, this metaphor of diamond of consciousness, we are looking at something from different facets. So it is one thing, however, you are looking at it from the facet of meaning, or from the facet of belief, or from the facet of frame, or from the facet of permission. So even though it appears as if the meta levels are, it can be also complex, however, there are different facets of the one experience that the client is facing. So that's why in neurosemantics, what we say is that the problem is never the person. The problem is always the frame. So as a person interacts with the surrounding, the thinking and presenting ways that the person creates all of these frames. These are the frames, and then linking it to background memory and moving forward. So they are creating all of those frames. And what we are noticing here, that's why we say that the problem is never the person, the problem is always the frame. What's hurting the person are these. This frame is unhealthy, and that's what's causing the hurt in the person. Okay, so that's why working at the meta level, yes, the problem is never the person, the problem is always the frame. I'm reading from the chat here. This makes us to be more compassionate and not to be judgmental. That's why in neurosemantics we say separate person from behavior. The behavior of a person comes from these frames that they have, and when these frames are unhealthy, the behaviors can be hurtful and harmful to others. So what we are doing in therapy is to help the person create new frames, to amend these so that they have new frames that are healthy. And that is what we are doing in coaching anyway. So that's why coaching can be therapeutic when you begin to take on new frames for yourself. All good so far? But there is a but over here. This meta-stating, this ability to create meanings and self-reflexivity to meta-state yourself, anything powerful can be powerfully misused. And in the context of people who are hurt, the misuse is unintentional. And they are using a very powerful tool in a wrong way against themselves. And that's why they become hurt. Yeah, the misuse and uninformed use of meta states. This explains most problems we face in therapy. Yeah, unresourceful states, distressful, negative emotional states, states of confusion, misunderstanding, limiting beliefs. All of these are created when we are not managing our meta-stating process very well. Okay, and when it is not done well, then a person may fall into this pathological meta states. So as a quick description of this pathological state is that when a person brings a negative thought or feeling against him or herself, then it puts you into that conflict within yourself. So you can have a primary state there and you are metastating yourself. However, when you are metastating yourself in the wrong way, you may create a petty state up there and then begin to create that negative state on top of that. And because of that, you are creating those states that are putting yourself in conflict with yourself. So taking the raised hand from Rosita, Ji, go ahead.
Most of this meaning and belief and the frames set during the early childhood, where the development of person is not yet, the cognitive development is not yet complete. It is
again
not most of these beliefs, meaning beliefs, perhaps that create the frames happen during the early childhood.
Okay.
Where the development, the cognitive development of a person is not fully developed.
Okay.
Yeah. And that caused them to make the wrong, the unresourceful frames in their life.
Yes, that can be part of it.
For example, there are cases like a girl that that was molested at the age of 7, and because of that, she gone through life, could not have good relationship with men. Another person, another girl, was molested at the age of 16, but she was able to put that experience. Not to allow that experience to determine or impact her relationship in marriage, for example. So what I'm trying to say is the cognitive development of a person when the hurt happened has a lot of impact as well. Is that it?
Yes, we talk about the inner game and the outer game. The outer game, there's nothing you can do. It happens. The difference is how you run the inner game. So in the context of the girl that you mentioned who was traumatized by the experience, the metastating process is in a way that is harmful to her. So when she grows up, she brings all of those metastates into her adult life, and that
without realizing it.
Yeah, so all of these are happening unconsciously, right? So the other girl that you mentioned, that because she was able to metastate it in a way that is healthy, she can grow up, bring those metastates into her adult life, and she is none the worse for it. So it is not what happens. It's how you frame the situation that makes the difference.
I understand that. At the same time, what I'm trying to say is when the cognitive development is not yet fully developed and trauma happened to the person, that they do not realize they have unresourceful frames.
Yes, so that's why.
so the meta therapy will actually help them to set more resourceful frames. Is that the conclusion?
That's why I was just about to throw this to all parents and grandparents in this room right now. You need to understand psychosocial development, cognitive development, belief stages of a human being, so that as your child is growing up and developing, you are facilitating their thinking in a way that is resourceful so that they can metastate their experiences in the healthy way, because they have not reached the level of development that they can do it by themselves. So that's why parental guidance is necessary.
Yeah, and then we need to have license to be a parent,
Yes.
like Michael said.
Okay. Right. Now, before I move on to the next point, I'm just reading the something here in the chat from Tunku Adrena. Notice that coaching does help a client to create new way of thinking, new frames as well. How does changing the frames via meta therapy different from coaching? No difference. No difference. So that's why earlier on, as I start this session, how is it that some coaching conversations can be therapeutic? Because the client was able to get rid of the old frames and put on new frames. So that's why in meta coaching, we say that you are not going to coach what's out there. You are going to coach what's inside at the meta level. Yeah. So I hope that answers that question. Thank you for asking that. So let's move to the next point, which is negative meta structuring. Yeah. Negative meta structuring is when you, the principle is when you bring a negative emotional states against you, against your state, now you are turning your energy against yourself. So that's why in APG, we have the pattern of dancing with dragons, how to handle states that you turn against yourself. So these are some examples. The state of fear about fear, pity about pity, guilt about guilt, anger about anger. It's healthy for you to be angry at something that happens out there because it violates your values. However, the moment you become angry about your anger, you are turning your energy against yourself. So, so this is, I would say, at the source of how we begin to hurt ourselves. We are turning our negative emotional states against ourselves. So when people do that, then we begin to notice that we may be experiencing certain kinds of neurosis. So take a look at some of these symptoms. One is suffering, that is part of emotional distress. Then misconceptions, this come from cognitive distortions and biases. Then defense, the fight, flight syndrome. Inner conflicts or drives, frames, and so on. Then false self, facades, inauthentic pretense, fatalistic, depression, despair, hopeless, feeling lonely, disoriented, and have this sense of uncertainty, lack of critical thinking, and confusion. So these are what we are referring to as some symptoms of psychosis, and this happens when a person begins to have negative meta structuring. The meta structures that they create in place are structures that are going against themselves. They bring an negative emotional state against themselves. So where does all of these come from? It comes from thinking that bad in terms of an experience that is undesirable to you, to think that that particular experience is personal, pervasive, permanent, and present. Yeah. So personal, pervasive, permanent, and present. So that frame is traumatizing frame. So as a coach, what you want to do is you want to help the person to reverse this way of thinking. Instead of personal, you depersonalize. That happened. There, then. That, there, then. Not personal to me, but it's out there. It's something that happened to me. Only then that person is able to be to think in a way that is more resilient, in a way that is healthy. So when we talk about the symptoms of psychosis, it comes from this negative meta structuring. Okay. Now, before I continue on, I noticed in the chat there that Rosita put in. So that is why acceptance is important in healing. Yes, and also Zaf, you put that can give some examples. Can you let me know specifically what examples are you referring to? Because I may have moved on and I'm not sure. What examples are you referring to?
I think when you think like you together, so like what specifically can you give an example on that? Maybe in the last couple of slides, even maybe you want to give a scenario or an example that actually understand.
Okay, yeah, maybe one example that I can give is that the example of anger about anger. So a person rightfully feels angry when a value is violated. Anger is an indication that a value has been violated. Now, somewhere that person may have a concept that anger is bad. And because the person come in the background, anger is bad, detecting that I am feeling angry, then I begin to, because anger is bad, then I become angry that I am angry. So notice that what you call the meta stating is driving the emotion against your existing emotion, because you have certain rules out there. So how we handle that is to go back to identify what's the rule that says anger is bad, to be able to understand the rule. And when you say that, to go back to this slide on where does this come from, to be able to question the rule. For example, anger is bad. So in what context is it bad? Is it about you? It is for all time? Is it permanent? So how you reduce the impact is to be able to go into that then thinking. So that event happened there at that point, at that time, and it doesn't spread to all time, and it's not forever. It is not pervasive. So it is not about you. It is an event. To be able to contextualize every of that experience that you have. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Lou, for joining us this evening. And Tunku Adrina here in reducing the impact. Perhaps it also to help the client to depersonalize the experience or trauma. I'm just thinking about how to word this, not so much as depersonalize. Depersonalize is if a person were to step out of the experience and look at it from the third party perspective. There is one way of depersonalizing it. However, the danger of doing that is a person becomes disengaged with reality. So it is not so much as depersonalizing as contextualizing it in, how do I put it? Let me find my words. Depersonalizing here is in the context, when I use the word depersonalizing, it is in the context that saying that maybe if I can give an example of personalizing, things happen. However, some people, they personalize when things happen, it means such and such to me. So that's how they personalize it. So when I'm talking about depersonalizing, it's about, yes, things happen, and I was caught up with what's happening. I feel angry. So it's not about being depersonalizing the anger. It's about feeling the anger and to be able to manage that anger. So it is not about what's the word in psychiatry? They call it it is not about disassociating. It is about not making it personal. I hope I make sense by that.
I am always angry. That is making it personal, right?
I am always angry.
I am a bad person because I'm always angry. Angry. So it becomes personal.
Yes.
But to say that I'm angry about that, then it is not personal.
Okay.
So another thing also, in reducing the impact, is to understand that to accept the fact that we are angry, and that is nothing wrong about experiencing the feeling of anger. But you need that. But we need to understand that we are. First is to accept. Okay, I'm angry about that. That acceptance, right?
What I would like to ask Tunku Adrina, when you mentioned reducing the impact, what are you referring to? Reducing what impact?
Well, trying to tie this to an experienced coaching clients where she had perhaps an unpleasant experience that have deep-seated into her way of thinking. So it has impacted her to a certain degree. So if we were to because you were explaining about helping them to reframe, right? And in reframing, we don't want it to make it, how do I say it? In such a way that it affects their beliefs in other situations as well. So what I mean by depersonalizing is not really about not attaching yourself to the situation, and you are not actually part of the experience. You are. And I agree with Puan Rosita earlier about accepting perhaps the experience that happens, accepting the feeling that she has, but also embracing the things that she is able to control, how she responds to the situation, and at the same time accepting the things that is outside of her power. So I suppose that's what I meant in reducing the impact.
Okay, right. Thank you. I'm glad. I'm glad that you have that. So thank you for explaining that. Okay, so let's move on to the next point. G, you still have your hand raised. Do you have a point that you want to make? Yeah, okay. Right. So next point here.
No, actually, sorry, I was muted. I muted myself. Actually, when I was talking about the acceptance just now, I was actually reinforcing the part whereby in our normal experience. I mean, before I understand about healing, I did not know that accepting our feelings as it is the first step towards healing. In most situations, for example, when we are angry with somebody else, for example, and then we start to meta-state it, oh, I'm so bad about being angry with that person. Why should I be angry with that person? That person has always helped me, and yeah, helping me in this, I must be a bad person because I keep on thinking about what goes into that. But the first thing that we need to do is, okay, I'm angry with that person now. So what can I do so that I can be less angry with him and I can be more resourceful in our relationship. Contohnya, kan? Contoh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I'm angry with you, yes, I'm angry with you. No, it's a bad example, no.
That's a very threatening statement.
I'm angry with you because you told me about the clock sound that is making me scared. Okay, I'm sorry, everybody.
Okay, thank you for that. So, moving on to the next point, therapy's kinds and degrees. And there are different kinds and different degrees for us to be able to understand this. Now, therapy, one kind is when a person goes through a crisis, when life goes wrong. So that's one kind and degree of therapy. Then there is this development deficiencies. So the part of gratifying the needs that we have, and we are not able to gratify those needs, gratifying needs goes wrong, then we are talking about development deficiencies. Then false mappings. Our understanding goes wrong. We understand about something and realize that what we understood about that thing was wrong. So that is false mappings. Or sometimes for some people, they don't even realize that they have running using false maps. And another kind is when defensiveness becomes a wrong system. So yes, there's the part of you, in order to take care of your safety and security, you need to build your defense mechanism so that you can feel safe. However, when it goes wrong, that defense mechanism becomes unresourceful. It prevents them from having the right relationships with people and so on. So that's what we are referring to, another kind and degree of therapy. Yeah. So distinguishing the kinds of therapy, we talk about crisis. So that's one examples of crisis is losses, whether in business or money, property, accidents, rape, theft, natural disasters, death. So life is turned upside down, like COVID. So that's a crisis that happened. So yes, we are hurt when those things happen, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually. So we are hurt when crisis happen. Then the next one is development deficiency. Yeah, failing to gratify legitimate needs truly and adequately. That creates a certain desperation. A simple need is for food. If you are not able to gratify that need for food, then you become desperate, and a person may, out of desperation, do something illegal in order to overcome that deficiency. So the meaning you give is the instinct you live. So because of the unresourceful meaning, your instinct drives you in order to gratify that, regardless whether it is morally right or socially right or legally right. A person is driven by that because of that development deficiency. The next one is erroneous maps. The neurotic is cognitively wrong. This comes from Abraham Maslow. We experience cognitive distortions and biases. So when our map is wrong, that's when our behavior can hurt or harm ourselves or others. A quick example is if you are driving around town with the wrong map, and then you are going to crash into something. So that is what we are referring to erroneous maps. Then the next one is defensiveness, neurotic system. Failing to gratify needs, development of neurotic needs, lack of ego strength to face life on its own term, a person opts for various ego defenses, living in a false self, false sense of reality, false belief, and so on. The neurosis becomes a self-sustaining neurotic or semantic system. So the entire system is wrong and needs adjusting. Okay. Now, this is a structural problem. So we need to understand what causes trauma, what gets wounded. Okay? What gets wounded are the meaning. That's what's wounded. And because of that, it creates limited or erroneous belief, limited or erroneous decision, limited or erroneous identity, wrong understanding, intentions, and so on. Because the meaning has been traumatized, the meaning has been hurt. So how do we overcome that? Is about exploring the dimensions of meaning to get rid of cognitive distortions and also cognitive biases. And in this situation, in as much as a person may be skilled in self-coaching, this is where a third-party coach will be most helpful, because cognitive distortions and cognitive biases tend to be transparent. We may not be able to see our own distortions and biases. Okay, G, you raise your hands. Go ahead.
Yeah, the example of erroneous maps, erroneous belief. For example, like people who believe that they are cats, that they are a cat, that they are, I mean, they are cats.
Okay.
That they change their face, and there are people who believe that they are tigers, and they change the punya muka lah, yeah. They have what called plastic surgery to make them really be that. That can also be, right? Betul tak?
Yes, that's one example. However, a more common example is that of erroneous map is that people don't like me. They are out there to get me.
Oh yeah, basic.
Yeah.
Okay, this belief, limiting belief, erroneous belief, is it also a form of escapism? The escape from their facing, for example, like people don't like me, so it is an escape from going to see people and be vulnerable to face people's comment or what on them. Yeah. Is it also a form of escapism?
It is a form of self-preservation.
Yeah, self-preservation, yes. Okay.
So let's cover two more sub-points over here. So the next one is on problems for therapy. Yeah. So what I've put there on the slide is the problem of meaning making. So when we are not skilled in meaning making, we are driven by wrong meaning, so we have false maps. So that's one problem. And the other problem is the problem of ego strength. A person who have a fragile ego, weak ego, lack of ego strength. So because of that, this person will have difficulty in responding to therapy. The next one is the problem of inner sense of threat and danger. This creates stress and psychosomatic distresses, and also the problem of neurotic needs. This leads to addiction, and then the problem of an entire neurotic system. So these are some problems for therapy that needs to be handled through therapy, especially the problem of ego strength that will not be cannot be handled through coaching, because coaching is about challenge, and a person with lack of ego strength will not respond to challenges. So the last point that I would like to bring to your attention this evening is, so what can you do? So if you notice that people are suffering from internal hurt or harm that they need to be cared for, so one is start with acceptance. Next is to add unconditional positive regard. If you understand the self-actualization psychology, it makes it all that much easier to have an unconditional positive regard to people. Next is add your own authenticity. You are there for the person, not for you. Next is by doing all of those, it creates a safe therapeutic atmosphere where therapy can occur. So when therapy is able to occur, what you do is you seek to understand the person on his or her own terms, not to be judging from where you are looking at, to understand from where that person is coming from, to listen to representationally, to track the words that they are using. So you are not attempting to bring your map into the picture, you are attempting to understand the person's map. Look for what's missing. You might not be able to catch everything. You might be missing something. So look for those. Ask penetrating questions to fully understand the person. So this is the skill of questioning, and meta questioning comes in. Invite a richer mapping of the person's world and ask questions to catch your cognitive distortions, biases, and fallacies as well. So these are what we can specifically do when we are dealing with people who require some form of therapy. Yeah. So I will just stop here for this evening. It is already 1.5 hours that we're here. I am really grateful that each and every one of you are here. I hope that with the 3 main topics that I've brought to you this evening, it is useful to you. So before we end, I would like to hear from you. What is your primary takeaway from the session that we had this evening? I find it very useful to hear from you. If you don't mind my going to each and every one of you and invite you to give me what's your takeaway for this evening. And I hope you can be brief about it. We are already running out of time. If you, I'll start off at the bottom of my screen. Jerome, you have anything that you'd like to say?
Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm sorry. I am new to this, but I really find the topic interesting, and it's also good to see coaches from across the globe. By the way, I'm from Manila, Philippines. So maybe not really a primary takeaway, but I just wanted to thank you and everything who has been sharing their insights from the start of this meeting. I am actually learning a lot. I actually am done doing the certification for NLP. So the terms that you used really are not new to me, but what's new to me is how do we tie this up with therapy sessions? Because even if I'm a certified for NLP, therapy is not something my thing. So anything that was covered around therapy, whether when a coaching is really therapeutic or when a therapy session is not therapeutic at all. So those things are I'd say one of my key takeaways. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you for that. And next, Aishu, go ahead. No? That's all right. Thank you, Aishu. Nurul, how about you?
Hi, great to see everyone. Hello, hi Marzuki. I actually learned a lot today. Thank you so much for sharing. I think the biggest takeaway that I had today is actually on meta framing. I find it very interesting in terms of how we actually have the access to change it. Either is therapy point of view or coaching point of view. So I learned about this in coaching. I also apply this a lot, but I think today your sharing make it more clearer for me. So thank you so much, Marzuki, for sharing. That will be my biggest takeaway. Thank you.
Thank you, Nurul. Next, Mariha. Are you able to access your mic, Mariha? So let me just read out what I should put in the chat box. Thank you, Marzuki. It's the first session, so understand the definitions better. Okay, thank you for that. Next, Coach Susanna, go ahead. Are you still traveling? Okay.
Yes. Yes, I'm still inside my car.
Okay.
All right.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead. You're next.
Okay. Hello.
Yes.
Yeah. So to me, okay, that is I always like that word. Is the people is not the problem. The problem is always the frame kind of things, and also the map. Okay. Sometimes, I mean, we never notice on it. We never realize we're having the wrong map on the hand, in hand kind of things. And also sometimes, right, we have the map, but sometimes the map is not the territory we are in kind of thing. So that's why we have to be aware of that, all this. This is my takeaway.
Right. Thank you, Ko. Next, Lania.
Where's the difference between coach therapy, where we need coach and where we need therapist at the very beginning? For me, that is the biggest takeaway.
Okay. Thank you for that. Zaf, go ahead.
Yeah, I think, I primarily just deal with married couples who are in crisis, who are at the brink of divorce. And I think maybe the takeaway is, how not to be biased, right? And because when we talk to two couples, when you listen to one couple, we were talking about it internally, and it was very difficult for us internally to remain unbiased, right? It was such a struggle, right? Such a struggle. And I tell my team, no, you got to remain neutral. And I think the biggest takeaway was to kind of like separate or look at the frame so that we remain unbiased. And I think I know I studied a little bit, I researched a little bit about meta programming and things like that. I think the breakdown of the frame in terms of like, I think the three structures, right? The past, and then I think the set of beliefs, and then the anticipation. I think that maybe some of the big takeaways as well. And I think, also the whole breakdown about in the beginning about when you go from therapy to counseling to coaching. I'm now I'm a bit confused because I feel that when we deal with married couples, we have to go through, we have to have, I mean, if we can't help it, right? Like we get them, they are in crisis, we got to counsel them so that they get like out of crisis a little bit, therapy a little bit, and then coach them, challenge them to be better husbands and wives, right? So you confused us a little bit right now. Maybe have a session with you to clarify things for us here.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, so that's why as a coach, you at any point in time, you need to know what hat you are wearing. So you keep changing hats too frequently, then you may confuse yourself. As Confucius says it, don't be confused. No, Confucius didn't say that. Next, Tunku Adrina, go ahead.
Hello, Mr. Marzuki. Thank you so much for the enlightening sharing this evening. I've learned so much from you. I guess it's hard for me to point out a key takeaway because there's so many takeaways that I've obtained tonight. I suppose one of the things that maybe resonated with me is that I now realize that unconsciously I have been giving therapies to my clients without realizing, because they were telling me like, oh, okay, sessions like I feel so relieved and I feel like kind of like therapy lah. And then I will go like, hey, no lah, this is coaching, this is not therapy, because I will be very, very worried if people think that I'm giving counseling or therapy, because I'm just qualified as a coach sahaja. So that's why. So now when you put it into perspective that there may be an overlap, it very much made sense. I guess when it comes to it being therapeutic, it still falls within the domain of coaching, because whatever it is, at the end of the day, when it comes to the result of coaching, normally the action or the results that's achieved is basically from the client, from the conversation, but it actually comes from the client themselves. Yeah. So I think it has shed a lot of light when it comes to you sharing about the modalities that is used sebenarnya sama with coaching. So thank you very much for that, Ms. Marzuki.
Thank you. I'm glad that you get that distinction. Next is Leah. Go ahead, Leah.
Hello, Dr. Marzuki, everyone. Again, first of all, thank you so much for the wonderful session. Everything is all new, very new to me as well. So I learned a lot. And yes, just like what we've talked about earlier when you started, I did get what I was looking for during the session. Thank you so much. But since everything is very new, I'd most likely go to the recording in case you're gonna send it to us. In terms of the main takeaway will be probably what resonated with me the most is the different ways how frames and the behaviors are born, and we should not judge the person itself, but the behavior. We should separate the person from the behavior. That's probably what resonated me the most from the session. But again, thank you so much, and I really hope to join more of these classes. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Leah. Appreciate that. Tingwi, go ahead.
Thanks, Marzuki. Many takes away. I was busy taking notes. I think one of them, really a big wow factor is looking at therapy from a meta structure, which I never thought of because I was always looking from a resilient coaching from a meta frame. But these times are wow. So I think there's a lot of work for me after this is just to connect all the dots. Really appreciate it, Marzuki Master. Thank you.
Thank you, Tingwi. Appreciate this. And Nisa, go ahead, Nisa.
Hello. Okay, coming from marital coaching program, same as Mr. Zafrul, it really opens my eyes that Dr. Marzuki said that coaches can wear many hats, while therapists have specific terms that not same as the coaches, because like some people thought, oh, coaches and therapists is like similar, but actually it's like a big space between them. Yes. And it really opens my eyes also when I just acknowledge that when someone is going through trauma and it doesn't heal properly, they will have certain symptoms like suffering, defenses. That's why those person act those ways. So the only way is acceptance. So it really highlights how I think about it.
Wow. Thank you. Appreciate that. And Ines, you're next. Go ahead, Ines.
Hi, Mr. Key. First, well, I started late. Sorry for that. Lost the first part.
However, it's very early for you, right?
Not exactly, but yeah, for me, yes. For me personally, yes.
Yes.
Marzuki, so something that I listened from you, and I think it was a distinction for me, is that when you brought the personal, pervasive, permanent, and present as traumatizing ones, I I consider that being the pessimistic meta programs that make us think in a pessimistic way. That was how I was framing.
Yeah.
But now you brought that as traumatizing one. So I can look now for what clients say and check if this is something that, you know, could be more than just being pessimistic. Yeah. So, and another thing, I think I didn't think about this, is that the defensiveness becomes a wrong system. So the person uses it in a different context, and it starts being a way of living, maybe, or relating. So this, for me, explains some kind of attitudes in some people that I know.
Yes.
Thank you.
Wow. Thank you for that, Ines. Really appreciate that. And last but not least, my darling wife, G, go ahead, Rosita.
I don't know where to begin. There's so many things that was enlightened. It was very enlightening session, actually. I have not been following your classes for quite some time, and very interested with the meta coaching, therapy. And maybe there are two things that actually give me a aha. That was the problem is never the person, but the frames. And that gives hope to actually how we can help people who are hurt because of the frame that they have put since they were small, or, you know, due to some traumatic experience that they have gone through. So that somehow, like, I know, but when you put it in the explanation, it gives me a big aha. And with the big aha, it gives me a lot of hope to help more people. Another thing is, what was that just now? Okay, never mind.
Okay.
Oh yeah, when you started with a therapy, we cannot be wearing the same. If we are a coach, we cannot be wearing therapist hat. That was the first thing you mentioned. However, with this meta therapy, a coach can use it to help the coachee who is in need of healing.
Yeah. So
that gives me, because I love doing therapy as well, but all this while I've been all this while I didn't know that I was actually doing meta therapy rather than therapy, because I'm not a therapist. But I realized that when you mentioned this now, it's about the frame, and now yeah, it gives me a lot of happiness inside. So thank you so much. Though you are my husband, I really appreciate the knowledge that you share, because when you come home, you seldom share it with me. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Now, before we end, just a couple of announcements that I would like to make with respect to the upcoming programs that I am scheduling. One is the Neuro-Semantics Leadership Foundation program, 3 modules altogether. Coaching Essentials is coming in January. Accessing Personal Genius will be, oops, I've not updated the date. It is in February, and also Unleashing Leadership, that it will be in March. So those are the 3 modules. And this is the Coaching Mastery. We are organizing in June of this year. So hopefully after this session, I'll see Tingwi's registration. Okay, so that's the announcements from me. I would like to say that I really appreciate your being here. It is to me an honor and pleasure to be able to meet you here, and I hope that the session this evening give you benefits that you can apply in your life that will make it much richer. So with that, I would say thank you and Happy New Year, everyone. May you have a wonderful year ahead, and I look forward to seeing you again. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Happy New Year. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marzuki. Bye, everyone.